great for her to share her experience on what's taking place so that you're not just hearing from me, but you're hearing from both of us and the messages and the downloads that we are receiving. So we both received important messages that were pretty identical. But before we get into that, I have a story to tell. So yesterday, I was in the hospital. I experienced second-degree burns on my chest. I was making coffee for myself, and I put boiling water into my French press. It's how I enjoy drinking my coffee. And the grounds to the coffee were a little too fine, so I was having trouble pushing the French press down. And when I started to push it down with a lot of force, I got burned. All of the water splashed onto my breasts. It was horrifying. I was screaming like a mad woman. I pulled my shirt forward. As I pulled my shirt forward, I watched my skin come forward. It was such a scary and profound moment for me because I felt like I was dealing with a mini crisis. I mean, really, second-degree burns, there's so many things that are much more traumatic, much more worse that can take place. But I just want to share in that moment for me, it was just very real on how anything can really shift in a matter of minutes, even seconds. I immediately grabbed mustard and I poured mustard all over my chest. I've heard since I was a little girl that mustard is really great on burns, so I did that. I was researching at the same time while I was crying. I was crying like a baby, like snot, the whole nine. It was just awful. The pain was unbearable. I then started to add some aloe vera that I had in the fridge, and it was cooling it down. Then I moved into just adding water, trying to cool the burn down because I was reading that when something burns, it's getting touched by something really hot, like skin or meat or flesh. The heat continues to rise, so it continues to burn. So it's so important to keep cooling it down at least for 20 minutes. I knew I had to go to the hospital, and I was pushing it off, and about 30 to 45 minutes after I got burned, we went ahead and went to the hospital. That evening, I was scheduled to do a live Q&A for Supermama's podcast and also run energy healings for 75 women. 3 rounds of energy healings, which I knew was, of course, exerting a lot of energy. When you do this work, you have to make sure that you're completely centered and in a great space in order to hold so much space and so much energy for so many women. I immediately texted Bricia and her sister and said, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I'm on my way to the emergency room. I may or may not be there. I was really upset because I knew that a lot of the women were looking forward to the energy clearing, and it's something that's so special, especially when you're going to create something like vision boards or write down goals or set intentions. To get the space clear is rule number 1. However you do it, however your intuition calls you to do it is completely up to you. But it's always important to start goals, manifesting anything with a nice, clean space. And so it was really important for me to do this. I'm sitting in the hospital and I'm in so much pain, and it's taking them forever to get me pain medication. I think I was sitting there for about an hour, and finally they're like, okay, we're about to give you Norco. And I had this moment where my intuition said no. And I heard myself say no. And they're like, okay, you don't want pain meds? Your blood pressure is extremely high. We know you're in pain. Are you sure? And I was like, yes, I'm sure. I knew that I didn't want to put any substance into my body. And so I just pushed through the pain. And another hour went by and I felt the calling where my intuition said, you're going to be fine. This is something that you have to do. It's about the message. It's about the work. And it has nothing to do with you. And we're not going to let this stop you. And I feel like normally this would have stopped me. Normally I would have been like, I'm not in the space, I'm not in the place. It was really beautiful to see something bigger than myself step in and say, don't worry. And I felt one with the decision, and I knew right then and there that this is really, truly my gift. It is really, truly my passion. It is truly, truly my journey. I yearn for it. I crave it. It is the only thing I want to do, is to talk about intuition, is to talk about healing, is to talk about how to heal. It's just all I want to do all the time, and run energy clearings and demonstrate to women what energy looks like metaphorically, so that things can shift and we can begin to see things from a completely different perspective. I just knew that I had to be there and that my mission needed to be complete. I needed to check off my mission for the evening, and if I didn't do it, I was going to be very upset with myself. As I began to push through the hours, of course, everything really began falling into place. I started to feel really confident in my decision, and I knew that I needed to be there. And I am so happy that I did, because it was such a powerful session. I just want to thank everyone that was there, that had an open heart, that was ready to receive the messages that I had been called to deliver. You all gave me so much more than I think what I could have given you. It was something that was really deep and spiritual for me. You just confirmed more and more and more and more that this is definitely the path that I needed to be on. So special thank you to Super Mamas for opening up the space, and to everyone that attended the circles. It was really powerful. We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to hear from Angie Sanchez and how her and I have been working together, not necessarily in person, but in another plane, and what is manifesting from this type of work, and how it's being confirmed time and time again.
Return to the one. Return to the one.
So thank you so much, Angie, for joining us today. I'm so excited to have you. For those that haven't heard, or maybe you're new to the podcast, Angie was the one that held space for me on my past life regression. She facilitated that. It was an amazing experience, and she's in my dreams now, and we're working together in a completely different way. And so I wanted to bring her on to talk to us about what is happening with the both of us right now. But why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
I love the way you said that, how we're working in a different way. Yeah, so I'm a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner. So I facilitate past life regression sessions. And during sessions, people connect with their higher self. So they're able to channel. As I mentioned earlier, I'm just expanding in the work of supporting people in their journey, in their awakening journey. I'm really excited to be in this space with you and be able to share what's been happening the last few weeks with you and I, and not even talking about it, just like all of these layers.
It's been quite the journey. So I want to start by saying I would highly recommend for you to listen to last week's episode. If you can, go all the way back to Past Warrior Part 1 and Part 2, just so you can get a clear picture of where my journey with Angie started. In the last episode, I explained that I had this dream with Angie, and I called her right away. Well, we are still uncovering parts of the dream. There are parts of the dream that I didn't mention in the last episode because I didn't know where it was taking me, but it's uncovering itself. There was a man that was watching Angie and I work. As Angie was showing me the alchemy of transforming coals into those blue sphere diamonds, there was this man that was sort of hovering. At one point, Angie proceeded with her part of the mission, and I stayed to uncover my part of the mission. I was standing in front of what looks like a sink, a big, long sink, and I was working with the water in the sink. And every time I would walk away from the sink, there was a new woman inside the water. And I would come back to the water really upset because she changed the chemical of what I was working on. And I had to like gently ask her to please leave. She couldn't bathe in the water. She had to step out of the water because I was working on it. So this proceeded to happen. And I remember seeing this man hovering. He had blonde hair down to his shoulders, like a dirty blonde. He was very slim, and he was dressed in black. We were all dressed in black. It was very futuristic-ish, like really cool outfits, something I would totally want to wear today. And he was wearing like a hoodie, but his blonde hair was showing through the hoodie. And I looked up at him and I was like, who are you? What are you doing here? And he was like, I'm part of the team. And he was very quiet and just very observant. Like I can tell he was watching me work. And I could tell that part of him was really studying my moves and how I was dealing with the women, trying to explain to them that they couldn't bathe in the water. They had to leave. So he was just such a profound character that was hovering. When I say hovering, I mean he was standing in the air. I would say his feet were kind of like at chest level. So I had to look up at him every time I wanted to see him. So I had mentioned that character was a small detail that I mentioned when I reached out to you, Angie.
Yeah, I didn't know all this actually.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated. I'm like, oh my God.
I know. I was like, there was this one man, he was skinny, blonde, and he said he was part of it. The night before I recorded last week's episode, which was Sunday, I was very exhausted and my body was trying to tell me something because of the level of exhaustion that I was facing. And I wasn't completely sure. And I thought, well, I had 2 beers the night before and a cocktail. I was at an event and there was alcohol. And I was like, it's not that I'm hungover because I can handle 2 beers and a cocktail with no problem. And I was taking a nap, which is very rare. I never ever take naps. And in my nap, I received a message from my intuitive voice, which I'm calling my intuitive voice. It felt like it was a command and it felt very male dominant. And so the command was very clear. It was, if you want to move to the next level, if you want to ascend, you are going to have to let go of alcohol. And so I was like, what? Well, how long? Till the end of the year. So I'm sitting there negotiating and I was like, how about we do this? How about we do 11 days? I'll let go of drinking beer because I love drinking beer. Drinking beer for me is like, it's such a treat. I love everything about beer. For me, it's like almost like a meal in itself. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this for 11 days. And I remember the voice clearly telling me, that's fine. Do it for 11 days, but you're not going to crave it. You're shedding yourself from it. So whatever you have to tell yourself to move forward. And I remember feeling like, no, don't do that to me. Don't take it away. It's such a pleasure for me. So I committed to myself. I didn't tell anyone, didn't even tell my fiance that I was doing this. Fast forward to Monday. I reach out as I'm recording to Angie and I ask her, is it okay if I share the blue meditation? Just explain to them what it is and share your perspective and what was taking place with you. And Angie, of course, graciously said yes. So I'm going to let Angie take over to tell us a little bit about her discovery of the blue flame, your practice with the blue flame, and then a recent message that you received and who you received it from.
So the blue flame, I actually saw it when I had my quantum healing hypnosis regression. I went back to a life where I was a wizard. In that experience of seeing that lifetime, I saw myself in the middle of a forest working with this blue flame. And so that's how I discovered it. I'll actually share my own audio. You 100% gave me the bravery to share what my session was like. So I'll share it in January. I'll share it. That's how I discovered it because I was like, what was this blue flame? I remember during my regression, I felt this sensation that I was spinning and I saw it in my hands and I saw it go up into the stars. And I was just like, what was that? So I Googled blue flame and I didn't find anything except some images of blue flame on Pinterest or something. feeling. So I started integrating it into my meditations. And what the meditation that I shared with you is something that's come to me from then. I think it was like four years ago when I had that regression. And I still don't quite understand it wholeheartedly, honestly speaking. I just know it's really powerful. It's funny because now there is such a thing as a violet flame. And I believe it's the same flame. There is some information out there about the violet flame. And I honestly I don't dive into the information because I like for it to come intuitively as well. I'm going to back up because as far as the man, the first time that I saw him, this was in December, actually a year ago, probably around this time, where like you was, well, actually not like you, but I had a bunch, some drinks, and I don't drink much. When I did at the time, I would get a little bit tipsy faster than normal. This is the last time I got like super drunk where I was like just a hot mess, you know? The next morning I was hungover, and I remember lying down on the couch, and I saw, as my hungover state of mind, I saw this male who was dirty blonde hair up to his shoulders. And in that image, he had a white futuristic suit. And in my mind, I was like, what is a white man doing in my living room? What's going on here? I was like, am I seeing this? And then I would close my eyes, and he was clearly standing in my living room, and he was hovering about 3 feet above the ground. And I saw it like he was turning some knobs. That's what it looked like he was adjusting some knobs. At the time, I was just so like, why did I drink that much? Kind of in that guilty mindset. Whatever the knob thing that he was doing, that was the last time I drank like that ever. Like that was the last time. And it wasn't even consciously. It was just, I don't know, something he did. And honestly, the night before I got into this really deep depression, like I was really sad, and he came at the right time, and I didn't know who he was or anything. I want to fast forward a month. I had a client come in, and she asked me, have you heard of this person or this consciousness that people call Ashtar? At the time, I had not at all. I was like, what is this? And when she left, I looked him up. I saw that he was the person that was in my living room a month before. And I had never seen this person. So I thought that was interesting. I kind of let it go. I didn't really think too much of it. I was just kind of fascinated by the information, right? Last week, I was meditating. I'm doing this like chakra cleansing meditation. And I was meditating on the sacral chakra. And as I was meditating in the dark, I see this man staring at me. Like in my meditation, my eyes are closed. And I'm like, why is this man staring at me? And so I proceeded to meditate, but he was just there. Like he was just watching me. Kind of similar to what you're describing with you working with the water. It sounds like just very observant, very like watching our moves. He was watching me, and I asked him as well. I said, who are you? And he said, I'm the commander. And I asked him, what is your message? Because I knew he was there for a reason. I said, what is your message? And he said, stop drinking alcohol because it lowers your vibration, and something about the connection with them or with like my guides. And for some reason, that consciousness, who he is. I'm the same as you. I love beer. I love a glass of wine. I can have a beer, one beer or two maximum, and I'm okay. But I know if I go past that, I'm like a hot mess. But I love the taste of beer. I love like a chocolate stout. It's so delicious to me. So I was like, oh, here we go. Like, no, I don't really have to. But I know that connection to that world or that intuitive voice, that intuitive knowing is so valuable and brings so much peace and so much connection. I think you text me a couple of hours after that meditation. Mm-hmm. Yes. I shared with you my insight from that meditation. You confirmed like the whole, like, I think we confirmed it for each other. So that was a huge, like, all right, like if you want to get serious and go to the next level, like, let's get serious. Totally. The next day you text me and you asked me what the man looked like in my vision, in that when I was meditating. That morning, I was listening to, while I work out, I listened to a lot of meditations and a lot of like YouTube videos. I found this man on YouTube who's really deep, like really into the space of higher self and our guides and guardian angels and all this stuff. In this meditation, he mentioned Ashtar and the command. And that's when I made that connection. I was like, oh my gosh, it was the same man from a year ago who was hovering over me when I was hungover. And I would have never made the connection with the alcohol parallels, like the alcohol in this one and then the being hungover in the last one, because I wasn't hungover anything this time. It was just a meditation. I could not have done that purposefully at all. You text me and you said, what did the man in your meditation look like? I would not have made that correlation, the Ashtar correlation, had I not listened to that YouTube video in the morning. And so seriously, it's like we were texting at the same time and we were describing the same description, the same man with the dirty blonde hair. I mentioned how he was wearing a white, but in your version, he was wearing black, which really doesn't matter. It's the same vibration. And so when I mentioned to you, look up Ashtar, and you were like, that's him.
I mean, I had already been freaking out for days over this. Like, I just kept thinking about it and thinking about it. And then when you confirmed the way he looked, of course, I jumped online immediately and I was freaking out because I was like, that's him. And the message that I was hearing him deliver was like the same. There's a big shift in consciousness, which if I take you back to the dream, Angie told me there's a big shift in consciousness that happened within the last 24 hours. And this is the work we have to do. And it was just really clear. And so to hear this repeated by this person on YouTube that was drawn up as a cartoon through someone that is channeling him was absolutely incredible. But then I went on to go find another video of him. And when Angie did my past life regression, I saw a futuristic city. The futuristic city that I saw is also being seen by other people, where Ashtar is connected in some way. I don't know how he's connected, but he's connected to the city. And so it's just been full circle over and over and over. And it's kind of like this gift that keeps giving. I know that for me, I've been practicing the blue flame meditation ever since we talked. I've also not had alcohol since I made that promise to myself, which was on December 2nd, and I don't crave it at all. I do have to share that one of the things that really helps me when I go to the Christmas parties and stuff like that is I just take a bottle of kombucha with me and sip on my kombucha and I'm all good. I definitely do feel much more in my power, much more intuitive, much more clear-minded, and I can see how important it is to maintain this lifestyle. As much as it hurts me to say that, even though I'm not craving it, I don't know, there's such an attachment there. My father was an alcoholic. You know, I'm sure that I'm healing also past wounds. How are you doing? Are you drinking?
Since we spoke, I have not. It's almost like this energy of Ashtar, this consciousness has helped you and I hold each other accountable without us even being together or in the same room or anything. It's like just you and I exchanging that message. Like there's an accountability there. So I haven't had a drink. I'm in Las Vegas right now.
Crazy.
So, my fiance was like, let's go out for a drink last night. So we sat at a lounge. We're staying at the Aria. So we sat at a lounge downstairs and I had hot tea and I had it was like a non-alcoholic cider, not cider. It was like a pear ginger cocktail, but non-alcoholic. And honestly, when I thought about even having a glass of wine, even like that negotiation, I'm like, it's fine. I thought about my body retaining the alcohol and I thought about the clarity that it'll fuzz and kind of that gate that it'll open. I wasn't about that life. I didn't want to hold that within myself. I didn't want to introduce that taste into my body or that energy into my body. So I was fine with the tea and I actually felt pretty cool.
I feel the same. I feel like I'm doing some really, not necessarily top secret, but it does feel kind of like that. Like I'm a spy or something.
I always say that. I'm like, what if I'm a spy and I don't even know I'm a spy? And that's like the big thing. So the fact that you just said that, I do feel like we're on a mission. I do feel like there's something
definitely
bigger than us.
100%. Talking about a mission and being together on this mission, you mentioned that the first time you did your past life regression, which I'm so excited to listen to in January. I can't wait for you to share that. You said that there you were a wizard and you were working in the forest. So, I mean, that gives me the chills because in my dream, you know, I referred to you as an alchemist.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. It's like that energy that you're carrying. I mean, I see the wizard and the alchemist as the same thing, right? You're changing one substance into another. And in your past life regression, you're working with this blue flame. We were in a forest type place while we were doing all of this work. So the sink that I was working on was like in the middle of the forest. Your workstation was next to my workstation. Yours looked like a city, a small city that was shrunk down to like, I don't know, a desk size. So we could see the entire city, and you picked up coals from part of the city that were underground in the city, and that's what you were working with. And so Ashtar was above hovering, watching us work. And then when I moved over to my station, I learned that I was working with some sort of element inside the water that wasn't quite revealed to me, because every time I was getting closer, I had to walk away. I had to walk away and use the restroom. And every time I would walk away to go use the restroom, I would come back and there was another woman bathing in my water. I was like, you can't bathe here. You have to go. You have to I'm working with this water. So it was constantly getting contaminated. I could see Ashtar getting like, I don't want to say upset or disappointed, but I could see him like watching me struggle with always having someone coming into the water I was working on. It was very clear to me that I could take the energy with me. I didn't have to leave it behind with another woman. I could bring it all with me. Oh my gosh, I just got an aha moment. Was actually in my body. It wasn't necessarily outside of my body, so it's in my body. And now I'm thinking that this is why I can't dream.
Oh.
Because you just helped me see that, because I have to keep the vessel clean.
Ooh.
I remember having that clarity of like, oh, I take this ink with me. I take this work with me. I don't leave it behind with anyone else. I take it with me. But now it makes sense. It's something that I'm working with internally. It's been such a pleasure just having you in my life. I'm so grateful for the way we met. Someone would have told us at brunch, like, this is what was going to happen.
I want to share with your listeners too something that happened before going to that brunch, which I shared with you, was that I was showering, and on top of my shower, like the little windows to vent the hot air or whatever, the steam. This is the second floor, the second story. So in that window, there were two little birds that were knocking on the window with their beak. I mean, there are no trees. I mean, there's a tree a ways, but they're not going to sit there. It kept knocking and it would fly. And at first I would see its shadow and I was like, what is that? Am I seeing things? It would poke at it. And then the other bird would come and it would poke at it. In my mind, I was like, I have to pay attention to today. And I remember calling my fiance and I was like, that never happens. These birds never happen. Like, they're never there. It's almost like divinely guided to have been in that space to connect and sit next to each other.
Yes.
All of this is it's such a blessing. It's such a blessing.
It feels like we're the birds and we're like, woo, let's fly over here. I felt like I was having a lot of prophetic dreams. And I even mentioned that. But I mentioned that 2 weeks ago on the podcast. This was before even having the dream with you. That night, or maybe sometime afterward, I had the dream with you. And it was a confirmation to me that yes, I am seeing things in my dream that do correlate to the life that I'm living right now. I know sometimes we think that and we know that in our being, but to actually have something confirmed is always special. It's just been such an incredible journey. So thank you so much for being my sister in healing and in discovery and in mission.
I feel the same. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, I'm looking forward to listening to your audio in January. I cannot wait for that. Do you have any events coming up or anything that you'd like to share with the listeners, where they can find you, your website, all the things?
Thank you. So I have a meditation I'm hosting in Claremont. If anyone's in Claremont, California or close by, it starts at 8 a.m. and we're just going to journey into the ether, the quantum field, 2 hours, 8 to 10. And then there are a couple of events happening in January and February, but it's all cultivating. So if people want to stay in touch via my website, that's www.angie-sanchez.com, or on Instagram at _Angie M. Sanchez. I'm going to be more active on YouTube in January. It's one of my biggest intentions, January forward. So those are all of the places where people can connect and find the latest.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Make sure you connect with Angie via Instagram, via her YouTube channel. I am going to share the meditation that she called out, that she heard Ashter's name on, that helped her correlate me asking her, what did the man look like? That meditation is really powerful. She's shared it with me and I've loved listening to it. I think it gets me into a really great energy frequency. I'm going to share that on my Patreon. It's going to be public so anyone can access it. While you're there, if you're not part of Patreon, go ahead and check out all of the levels that I have. I have levels starting at $3, $11, $22 with all of the things, all of the content. I am going to add extended content of this podcast, the video format, where Angie and I stayed and dissected some other stuff. So if you want to check that out, that's going to be accessible to the Warrior Princess level and above. If you like the content that I'm creating, I'd appreciate it if you headed over to iTunes and give me a 5-star rating as well as writing a review. I appreciate it so much. I hope that everyone has an amazing week. May the light within grow stronger.
Return to the one. Return to the one. Return to the one.